Hey everybody, this is DayTraderRockStar, and this is a continuation of a series, a video series on stock trading, introduction to stock charts and trading for kids, students, and beginners. This will be part 4, and the topic of this part 4 is 3 most important things to pay attention to when taking a trade or making a longer-term investment. Now, this is, I think it's going to be a fantastic video because I said, well, I want to give you guys like the 5 important things to pay attention to, and I couldn't come up with 5 because the way I trade, my method of trading is so disciplined that we're only looking for 3 things to line up, and when we have those 3 things, then we tend to have our best setup that we're looking for. And that's a little bit different from what this video is about, but it does come into not making things too complicated. You never want to make anything more complicated than it needs to be, especially when it comes to stock trading. So these 3 important things here we're going to go over. It's very easy, it's very simple, and yet I would recommend this for any trader. To lock yourself into these 3 things, and that will increase your success level tremendously. It's just going to be night and day, because it's going to start you off on a good solid foundation for trading. So the first little tip here, I shouldn't even say tip, but something that's very important is your quality. When you're going to take a trade, I always stress this. I've been trading here for 20 years now, and in the beginning I've gotten myself involved in a lot of cheap stock, penny stock, boiler room stocks. You go through the whole circuit of things as you learn to trade, and over time you realize to separate what doesn't work and adapt what does work. And you have plenty of stocks to choose from. The stocks that are stable, and as you go through the world and whatever you do, you're very you're probably on social media. You understand what's going on in the world, and you can recognize these brand names. It's things that basically you use. So when we talk about a quality name, think about quality, something that you use. It could be here in the States, it could be in Europe, it could be wherever you are. Here's just an example of just random names that you might hear or see in the media and stuff. Some of these are publicly traded companies. Some of them are attached to publicly traded companies, and it already gives you a good foundation of stocks to look at. So we're looking through these. I mean, McDonald's, Bank of America, there are 2 stocks right there. FedEx, a great stock right there. Sprint, you have Telecom, Nike, great stock. Kohl's, you have Intel. These are just, this is exactly Starbucks. How many people get Starbucks out there? Well, each one of these companies has a chart that goes along with it, and that's what we're going to be basing our trade. And here's Home Depot, actually, right up here. Home Depot. So, if you're familiar with Home Depot, you like the way it's run. It's a big plus when you look at the chart and you see this overall upward moving channel, or just a trend. And a trend is a series of higher lows and higher highs. Particularly the higher lows. So the trend has been up, and then as you're looking at this trend, you see just slight pullbacks, maybe a little sideways pullback. You could call this a flag, and then it slowly moves back up, and it'll pull back and slow. But the overall general direction of this is up, and that's what you will see in quality names. Most quality names over time, the reason they're quality names, like here's Apple. Apple's looking at the last year, it's actually been down a little. But overall, if you take a look at any longer-term charts on this, you can see that Apple has been slowly moving up here. But, again, names that you're familiar with. Because once you get to those names that, that are familiar with the market and mutual funds and other traders, they tend to stay within a set pattern. It's less likely to, just be too volatile for the setups that we look for. Like I said, Home Depot, Apple, FedEx, FDX, a lot of these are going to be very tight. We could, we're going to see trend lines on them, and we're going to be using one of our oscillators to really determine when the trend is developing on a quality name like this or like that. So again, just take a look at those names, and just make sure you surround yourself with a quality name. Next segment here, and again, that's just an easy one. And remember, we're only going over 3 today. And this is when it gets to our trade. Trade the trend. Very important. Very, very hard not, sometimes to pass up. But it's so important just to realize that like anything, you have the momentum, you have the trend in your favor. It's better to be on the side of that, against going against it. There's times when you want to go against it, times that you're picking bottoms and stuff, but the majority of the time, you're already ahead of the game if you're actually going in the right direction of the market or the individual stock that you're getting into. So it's very important to, and it makes a lot of sense. All right, so things could get a little complicated when we talk about trends, because you really have to define what time frame you want to trade at. And when I say what time frame, is how long do you want this trade to last? Is it a quick trade that you want to be in at the beginning of the week and get out at the end of the week, or you want to be getting into something now and holding it a couple of years or even 10 years? This really depends on how you're going to base your entry on your trade, and this is again the most important thing to remember, because it just starts you off on the right foot, and it increases the odds of just being successful and not starting off at the wrong time. There's just a right time, right combination of things to happen for the timing to be right on for an entry. So you have to decide, hey, am I trading? Is this a day trade even? Am I trading within the same day, or am I going to let this trade over a week or two? When we decide what that's going to be, then we could relate to our time frame. We have our daily, hourly, even the 5-minute time frame, the 1-minute time frame, and in some cases even the weekly. And we use the stochastics, and that's going to be part of the third section here. Is the stochastic oscillator is going to be our indicator telling us which way that trend is going. So depending on the short term, the time frame, and we talk about, all right, this, John, what is this? Is this an uptrend or is this a downtrend? Well, it's an uptrend when you look out on, on the monthly or on the daily chart. It's making a series of higher highs and higher lows. But the short-term move back here is just a pullback in there. And when you want to take a position like on Home Depot, and any stock, and this is where the rule comes in, all you want to do is take your time frame, take the daily stochastics, and make sure it's heading in the direction of the trade you're going to be taking. Now, it makes it much easier to have it off a trend line or understand what a channel is. So when you have that channel and that oversold level, that's a much better entry right there. And you want to have that going in the direction of your trade. So if you're up here and you see these stochastics on the daily are extended here, but you're thinking, well, we're going to break out here. Well, momentum is already up here. It's hard to guess that, and that's the last thing you want to do is take your entry here thinking, oh, I want to go long term for a couple months here, and then have to wait a couple months even to start moving, moving back up. So you'll just want to always position the starting stochastic daily, if you're doing anything longer than a few days, make sure that's pointing in the direction of your trade that you want to take. All right, so that's the same thing. It's a shorter time frame. We could refer back to the 60-minute time frame, the 60-minute chart here, and you can see the nice rotation gives us a nice rotation up. But each rotation that gets overbought can be met with more selling because the overall trend is down. So each time frame really works inside the bigger time frame. A 60-minute rotation will happen as the daily is slowly moving down until the daily gets oversold. Then we have maybe a daily 60, and then you have a breakout. And again, that might be a little bit more complicated, but again, I can always answer your questions if you have any. The time frames are super important, and you could go right down to the 1 minute if you had to. You say, all right, my daily set up, and I want to wait for my 60 to set up. And then you can see actually there was a trend line down here also, and that would have been a fantastic entry. But it's very obvious that was where it would be. It wouldn't be up here where you would start off and you would be chopping around and maybe even dropping. And depending on what how you're feeling in the market, that might even shake you out. So remember, if you're going to go long, you want to make sure that this is starting to turn back up and actually moving on up. And if you're going short, the same thing to the downside. And then there's other things that play out, the bigger time frame, the daily. If you're going to go long, you want to have that daily pushing higher. If you want to go short, you want to have that daily pushing lower. So you have the 60 and the daily all working together. You have a much better move like we just saw here. And the daily here is continuing to move here. And there's other things that play out here too. And that's going to bring us to the last key thing to watch for. is to use that stochastic oscillator to confirm the trend and to be ready for any type of divergence. And another reason I wanted to put this video out, because this week has been a fantastic week for divergences, and that's a little bit more of a expert level discussion. So if this is a video on just the basic trend, identifying your trend, the divergence setup is one of the best trade techniques that I do. And it's a little more advanced, but I have plenty of videos out on those, so you can just help yourself. There's some on the YouTube. There's also on the station on DayTraderRockStar. So here is that divergence. So whenever we have that, and again, kind of crossing over to a little bit more advanced stuff here, but when we have that divergence, that higher low and that lower low, that is our key indicator. So once we see that setup, we had it back here, we tend to get the bigger moves, and that's where you really want to take your positions. And we go back to being either a day trade, something that's in and out, or a swing trade, or a position trade where maybe it lasts a couple months up to a year. You still want to have everything lining up. And we talk about position trades, or an investment, or an IRA, or mutual fund. You could still look at that look at the weekly then. Because as you can see, the weekly here doesn't usually get back into an overbought or oversold level. It takes time, but this is a great indication for a downward move. You get a little pullback, it crossed back up, you're moving back up, and each one of these candles represent a week. So it's like you don't have to worry too much about checking it every day. The momentum is driving you higher until you get extended up there, and then you can make your decision. Maybe I want to take this off, or maybe reinvest it with another setup that's fitting the criteria, because eventually just like you had a nice weekly move up here, you're going to have a nice weekly move down, and then all of a sudden, hey, we're oversold again. So Home Depot actually would fit into a criteria for people who wanted to get into something longer term. Home Depot, nice pullback, very strong stock, and the weekly's pulled back a lot. So this is a great investment area right now for Home Depot. So we look for those divergences, and that's very, very important. So just to recap, 3 most important things to pay attention to when we're looking at an individual trade, and you could be trading anything. Say you're just trading the SPY, which is the ETF. It's the same thing. Here's your weekly. Weekly is actually pointing down. The daily, we just came out of this divergence, so we had a positive. Remember, the Brexit vote just happened, so whenever there's news, and that's an important thing I want to mention, news trumps everything. Once there's news out there and the market's real jittery and has some fear in it, the patterns tend to break down, and they tend to reset up, and it's usually a good time to pay attention to the market, but things could get very volatile, and that's what's happened in a lot of these charts. So be careful. It's easy enough to step out because the techniques that you're learning here are so good. All you have to do is wait for them to come to you. You don't have to chase them down. It's just a matter of time letting something set up like a Home Depot pullback, daily, weekly setup now. And other stocks that we're getting into, even talking about drug stocks, the divergence, the pullback, the time frames, having that daily time frame pushing higher, that's all we want to do. If we wanted to go short here, we'd wait for this to get up here, start to turn over, rotate back, and that's where we start looking at that short. So just being on the same side as the winning team, so to speak, using those stochastics to confirm the trend. Upward stochastics, downward stochastics. Trade should be going in the direction of those oscillators. And the divergence. We see that divergence, that's a go-to trade. And then we'll back it up here. Quality, that's the underlying criteria for picking your stocks. You could apply all these methods, but they work best on quality names. And again, your trend. It's so much easier understanding that you have maybe a downward trend versus an upward trend, and that's where you use the stochastics to come in and help you out. So that's it for this video. I hope this helped a lot. I'll be continuing to put out some more of these videos, and if you want to get in touch with me, you can leave a note on YouTube or visit DayTraderRockStar.com.